we hadn't talked about in a while, and I think it was worth talking about again, just simply what is sex therapy? Like, just
Mhm.
what is sex therapy? And it's just, I think we need to remind everybody from every now and then exactly what it is. And it is so amazing to me that it is 2024 and a lot of people still don't know. It's also amazing to me that it's 2024 and we still have like basic sex problems and basic like sex information just isn't getting out there into the world with all of the technology and all of the YouTube videos and podcasts and everything. There's still so many people who don't have good sex information and able to apply it to their lives. So that's the topic for today. What is sex therapy? And I'll kick it off because my computer may die, but I'm gonna have to go off screen for a little while. So you're gonna have to talk to each other while I go find my power cord. Um, uh, my supervisor told me good sex therapy is good sex education. And so I'd say that first and foremost is good sex education. And I know people think that they got sex education in school. You did not. You probably had education on maybe the reproductive system, but not sex and sexuality. I would say, secondly, sex therapy is good information about how you think about sex and just kind of good information, good feedback, and just a really good time space area to look at how you think about sex. Because we don't think about how we're thinking about sex. And so many, because how we're thinking about it is the reason why we're having problems. So if I'm thinking that sex can only happen if I have the perfect body, that that's going to throw me off. If I'm thinking that my partner will only want to have sex with me if I weigh this weight and not an ounce over, that's going to throw it off. And there, in the history of my doing this work, I'm just here. Like there are some true jerks in the world, but in the history of doing this work, I've never had, and I'm going to talk about heterosexual couples because this happens a little bit more than same sex couples. But I've never had a guy say, I don't want to have sex with my partner because they gained too much weight. Like I've just never, I just had, that not has been an experience I have had. I think, so I've noticed that females think way more about that. And it's kind of like, I don't even have a good analogy for it. But anything like you'd rather have. Oh, one of my clients say it like this, and this isn't about weight. This is just about sex in general. Like sometimes they talk, they rank it in like pizza. They're like, pizza's still pizza. You still like it, even if it's not the greatest pizza. It's like everybody pretty much still likes pizza, and so they kind of rate their sex lives on like, is that more like Little Caesars pizza or like Johnny's or like the Italian restaurant pizza, and so but it's still pizza and we still like it, and that's how most people feel about sex, even in marriage, regardless of what's going on with our bodies and our lives. It's pizza's still good. Pizza is still good. So, okay. All right. What do you guys think? And enter the conversation. And I'm gonna go off screen while y'all talk about what is sex therapy.
Sure, I can go. I think the first things that I thought about was what sex therapy is not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are a lot of misconceptions on what it is. And so to just clarify, sex therapy is not getting naked with your therapist. Your therapist is not touching your body or your genitals.
Mm-hmm.
We are not watching our clients masturbate or have sex. We are not involved in the sexual act in any way other than saying, hey, try this exercise, try this. Not here, later. So I think a lot of times whenever I tell somebody that I'm a sex therapist, they're like, I have so many follow-up questions. And I
Uh-huh.
think a lot of them are really just about like, do you get naked? No.
Mhm. Yeah, like the media, like depictions of sex therapists, like they're kind of like sensual and like they're very like yeah, a little crossing the line and crossing the border.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's highly unethical. I mean, there are therapists, there are cuddle therapists, there are sex surrogates, there are sex workers. So, like, if you are interested in someone helping you with the actual act of sex, there are people out there. But that does not mean that we are those people. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mary Hannah, what
absolutely.
are your thoughts?
Um, my thoughts are like sex therapy, and this goes a little bit with what Natalie said. Like, sex therapy is a place to be completely open in a place where most people are never open about sex anywhere else. Like, and I can tell that with whenever I meet with clients for the first time, they like kind of pause when they're describing like sex that they've had, and they're like, should I say it? And I'll even do it, like I'll say like, okay, I'll break the barrier, like penis, vagina, like anus, like blah blah blah. Like I'll try to like ease them into this world that's like, we're going to be talking about this stuff explicitly so that you can actually get a hold on what's going on. Like, this is a place where you can really explore sex in a place where we're not encouraged to openly otherwise. um, I also feel like sex therapy is a place where we may be exploring things that are not exactly related to sex. uh, I
Mhm.
have one client where my our goal right now is just to help them get their stress under control because they are so stressed in their life that like any stimuli to them is going to like more likely come across as negative because they're
Mhm.
so stressed in the rest of their life. And
Mhm.
so I think there is another misconception that sex therapy is like you come in and you just focus on sex, and there's one partner that wants sex less and they need to be fixed. And it's like, well, actually, this is all happening in the context. It takes two to
Yeah.
tango. Someone in the relationship likely has a lower libido for some reason. Uh,
Mhm.
and the reverse is true as well. And so, like, discussing the patterns in your relationship or in your past relationships and seeing if anything kind of comes back around to how you view sex, what you
Yeah.
get out of sex, what you
Mhm.
view good sex to be.
Mhm. That's an excellent point, Mary Hannah, because I think it's always every now and then I'll have a couple come in and we talk about time management. And then the wife is like, I totally thought this would be something different. Yeah, it's practical things of if you are waking up at 5 and you got 5 kids under 5 and you have a full-time job and you're trying to get them ready for bed, nobody that's doing that is going to be able to be active and awake and aware and be able to be seductive and desirous at not after 9 o'clock at night. Like you just can't. And so it's so interesting that I think in general we don't. I don't know the best way to say this. I think in general we don't understand how much intentionality we have to have in our lives to have our lives be what we want it to be. I think there's this idea, and maybe it came from TV and social media um, that it's like life is just supposed to work and things are just supposed to happen, and it will all fall into place, and it doesn't all fall into place for no area of our lives. Like if
Mhm.
you want to have a retirement savings account when you retire, you've got to intentionally save. It just doesn't all of a sudden magically happen and appear. Like, no, you've got to make some financial decisions. If you want your kids to have a college fund, you've got to make some financial decisions. If you would like to, be able to still walk when you're 70, you have to make some decisions when you're with your health and with your exercise and with your diet. And if you want a partnered relationship that includes sex, you have to make some decisions for that. You have to put some habits in place and build some skills around that so that you will have that. And you can have sex until the day you die. You really can. But it's about building the skills and doing it with intentionality. It's not something that just happens with this. And I think back to sex being about good education. It's good education about kind of life and expectations, and good education about how our bodies work. And I think one of the biggest things I educate my clients on, it is nice when you have desire for sex, but desire is not required for sex. It's not. And it's something that also may not happen until after you're having sex. Then the desire may kick in. And so those are some of the things that like we educate on with our clients, and then figuring it out. And sometimes it's not being an initiative partner or the partner who's initiating, but being a good receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes we are educating our clients on how do you initiate? How do you initiate? What do you need to talk about? What do you need to do? What do you need to think so that you could possibly initiate with your partner? So, okay, go ahead, because I think I took it from you guys.
I think also negotiation is super important. Being able to understand that just because somebody asks for sex and initiates, that doesn't mean, like, really what that is a bid for affection, a bid for attention, a request for intimacy.
Yes.
So it doesn't need to be like I'm on my period, or I have a headache, or I'm sore, or I'm stressed, or whatever, and so no to sex. It's how am I answering the bid for intimacy? So like, hey, I'm not really feeling sex right now, or I'm not really feeling like taking my clothes off, or whatever. Maybe I'm feeling gross or whatever. Like, but let's cuddle on the couch. Let's make out. Let's hold hands. Let's take a shower together. Like, there's so many other options that it's expanding our vocabulary. It's expanding our options. It's expanding how we interact with each other, and how important those little things are that lead up to sex as well as just the sex.
Excellent. That's so good. And the lead up part. And so sometimes in sex therapy, we're just working on basic couples communication skills.
Yes.
Because you can't cuss me out and then think that I'm going to like want to have sex with you. And that's men and women. I've heard men say that and women say that you can't cuss me out and then think that I'm going to want to have sex with you. That's just not how it works. And that's kind of more of extreme in argument, but there are even like little things that kind of couples do to either turn each other off or turn each other on. And so sometimes we're just working with couples to identify what those little things are. It's almost kind of like that kind of 1% difference, that 1% difference. And that 1% can get us to more sex or less sex, and helping couples identify how that is, and it might be something as simple as adding a kiss before we say goodbye, or a kiss when we say hello or coming back into the room, or learning how to touch each other around the house, just to engage physically. So it's easier for us to touch and engage physically at the magic hour, whatever that may be. And I'm always encouraging my clients that please make that before 9:00 at night. If you're a working adult, please make whatever your magic hour is before 9 p.m. It is just hard when you've worked a full day, especially if anybody's who has any type of getting kids, any type of kids, people who have children, but also any type of extracurricular activities, including like a good exercise regimen. So if you're one of those people who's up at 4 to be at the gym at 5, at 9 p.m. starting sexual activity is just not going to work. It's just not. And so either we need to figure out something for the midday, or how to make our evenings better so we can get to the bedroom faster. So, okay. What is shifting a little bit? What do you guys feel like the number 3 things are that you kind of give every couple? And I know every client is different, and we really tailor our our work to our client and what's showing up. But if there were kind of three themes that you usually go through in therapy, in sex therapy, what do you think it is?
Mm. So the first things that come to mind are like quality time. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times I work with my couples on like how much time are you actually spending connecting with each other before you even get to
Mm-hmm.
the bedroom? And then it often turns out like, oh yeah, we haven't done date nights in a while, or I can't remember the last connecting
Mm-hmm.
conversation we had. So we need to get through that, because then the next thing is helping couples look back on like, okay, well, when was the best sex that you've had together? And kind of
Mm-hmm.
talking them through what made it the best sex. And
Mm-hmm.
almost every single time, what made it the best was how connected they were to each other and how in the moment they were. And it's often really surprising for couples to realize, like, oh, it wasn't like the technique, it wasn't because someone performed a certain way. It was like
Mm-hmm.
both just so in it. And that's what made it the best. And so I think like helping couples even realize what the goal is so helpful for them a lot of the times. And then I would say maybe like the third thing is like helping couples and individuals like sharpen the skills of being self-reflective, monitor
Mm-hmm.
what their internal experience is before, during, after any kind of sex or physical intimacy. Like I always tell them to kind of play detective. Notice like when does that anxiety kick in? When do you start to notice yourself pulling away? Where do you feel that in your body? What are some of the indicators of when you're starting to get stressed? So those are some of like the three like beginning things that I try to tackle.
Okay. Jessica Renard?
Yeah, one of my first kind of go-tos is just educate yourself about your body and your partner and sexual
Mm-hmm.
response and sex education. Period. One of my biggest go-tos is "Come as You Are" by Emily Nagoski. Like, if this is good for anybody who has a vagina or sleeps with someone that has a vagina. So like educate yourself. I think that's really important. All of the things Mary Hannah said were super important as well. To add on to that, context matters.
Mm,
Like environment matters. So like if your room is constantly cluttered with your kids' toys or clothes, you're not going to want to be intimate in that space. If you don't know whether or not your kids are going to bust in on you in the middle of something, this is not going to be helpful. Understanding that the dishes in the sink can actually affect whether or not you're going to have sex. Like, and so understanding that what is the context, or do I need to have candles, or do I not need to have candles, or do we need to shower, or do we not need to shower? Like a lot of those context things matter and are important. And then I mean, timing more than anything else. Like, slow down. I feel like so much of our culture is like as fast as we can get it. I'm working on a presentation today with someone, and we kind of talked about how a lot of people seem to view sex almost as like purging for an eating disorder. Like, I'm going to get it over as fast as possible. No one's going to know. Like, I'm not going to address any of the shame I have around
Mm-hmm.
sex. Like, and it's, instead of drawing it out and savoring it and taking your time and enjoying the sensations and enjoying the pleasure that comes with it. Like, it's you had an orgasm, I had an orgasm, okay, we're done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
mm, mm, mm,
Yeah. Okay. So I think my three are defining what good sex is, defining what good sex is, and really making couples think about it. Because for so many people in general, sex is kind of something that happens in the dark by accident. Like, just, yeah, we were both on the same page in the dark and it just happened to happen. So defining what good sex is, defining for my couples what a good rebuff is. I do a lot of work around what a good rebuff is. And so, because I, I, I get it. Your partner wanted sex and you didn't want sex, or you weren't able to do sex. But we got to do it in a way that it doesn't hurt our partner, that it doesn't feel like rejection. So that's not just a shutdown. And so we do a lot of work around that. And then again, what do we need to do to create or set us up to have sex? Like, what does that mean? One of my supervisors used to say, um, I think he said this in general, but I think he also said it personally. Like, sex starts with me bringing my wife coffee in the morning. And so really identifying what for couples, what are all of those small things that lead up to that? And that's what I really want them to build. And then communication is huge. So sometimes we just practice talking about, how do you want to talk about sex? When do you want to talk about sex? When's the ideal time to talk about sex? Which is just a good couple tool period for, when do you want to talk about the hard topics in your relationship? Are y'all a couple that needs to walk around the block and have this conversation? Or can you sit at a kitchen table and have this conversation? Do we need to have it after sex, before sex? Like, when is the best time? And so I think that's one of the most important skills that we try to give our couples, is the skill of like self-reflection and reflecting on the relationship and being able to take a step back and say, how are we doing in this area? What do we want to do to improve? Using the we language, and just understanding that a marriage is not just this thing that's perfect and works. Like, it requires a lot of tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and retweaking. And I wouldn't even say with marriage, any long-term committed relationship, even with your friend, is getting like, I know we used to be able to do this, but we can't do this anymore. Or, hey, I used to be okay with this, but I'm not. I'm finding this different. Or can we change this or this? And realizing that there's some ways when your partner is exactly who they were when y'all started out. But there are going to also be ways in which your partner has changed. And so being open to that change in them and how that's going to change the relationship, and embracing it. Because I think we have a lot of couples who are like, but it used to be like this. Yeah, let's find out what the new is in the relationship, the new wonderful things in relationships. Okay, ladies, in our last 5 minutes, what do you want clients to know about sex therapy, and what do you want them to know?
I would say most likely the things that you are coming in that like you and your partner have like shouldered and burdened for maybe years are things that like we hear about all the time. They are issues that we help couples work through all the time. Like, most likely what you're experiencing is extremely common. And it feels as if like you must be really, really broken to need sex therapy, when really, like, I kind of think everyone needs sex therapy, or at least sex therapy resources and books. So like that thing that feels like this deep, dark secret, it is not. It is something that so many people are going through, and we help them work through it every day.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. All right, Jessica, Renard.
The same thing you've been doing for the last 5 years is not going to keep working. Like, you've got to change things if you want it to be different. And part of what we help with is, like Mary Hannah said, normalizing it, but it's just providing an outside objective. It's figuring out different resources. It's seeking help outside of it. It's the same way that you go and get an annual checkup at the doctor, or you regularly check in with your finance person. Like, these are the same resources that you use for all other aspects of your life. So like, it's not shameful or bad or showing a deficit in your area that you're needing to reach out to a sexual professional as well.
Yeah. My advice to everybody is come in sooner rather than later. Please do. So a lot of couples don't come into therapy, to counseling, until they've been dealing with a problem on average of about 6 or 7 years. That just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I've had some couples in my office, and I'm like, oh God, y'all could have came in here 5 years ago when we could have had this taken care of. And so I'll say, if you and your partner would like to be having sex with each other and y'all haven't had sex with each other, I'm going to say 3 months. Come in. And if it's only been 3 months, we can probably add some tips, tricks, tools that would get your sex life back on track. I'd say we could probably even do it in 2 to 3 sessions, and you're good to go. But when it's 6 years in, we got to repair the relationship. We got to repair all of the resentments that added in that have happened over the years. I mean, essentially, it's a train that's been going the wrong way for 6 years. And so to get that thing turned back around and going the right way is hard and it takes time. And yes, we do it professionally, but it doesn't have to be like that if you come in. And I know it feels like, oh, it's been 3 months. It's not really a problem. Tackle it then when it's not really a problem. Like when it's a molehill and not a mountain, and it's going to be so much easier. So much easier. After 6 years, it's hurtful. It's hurtful. And so come in sooner. Come in sooner. It Well, it's like just come here for an introductory session and just see what you think. What I love about us the most is we are real people with real lives. Like we get it, we understand, and we really want to help. So there's no judgment. It's confidential, and so why not try it sooner rather than later?
Mhm.
So okay, thank you, ladies. Y'all have a great day. All right, bye, everybody.